The final of the pairs of the troublesome verb sets involves rise and raise. And I'll start today with looking at rise, which is going to be in the category with sit and lie, although I'll ask you to recall that while those were synonymous words that meant motionless, they did involve people or things that on their own were motionless. They didn't involve the action of something else to move it. So I want you to think of someone who would sit on his or her own in a chair, or something that lies on a table. That is, it is motionless on a table. And that is something that doesn't involve the movement or the placement of something else. It's just existing or motionless on its own. Maybe something also to notice about these words in this category would be that these words all have I in their natural form, in sit and lie and rise. That's a way to think of them all to go together. But the definition of rise doesn't involve something being motionless. I want you to think of it as something that goes up on its own. And it can be a person. Okay, you could rise on your own out of your seat, or you could rise out of your bed in the morning. Sometimes we talk about the temperature that rises. Think of that going upward or going up on its own. And when we had those look-fors, or those things to look for, remember we were looking for prepositional phrases, that could still be the case in the case of a situation with rise. I'll show you how that's the case in something like number 6. We have Brandy, the singer and actress, who had risen here, risen, because we have this prepositional phrase, to stardom. To stardom is that kind of clue that we're looking for, that look for, that comes after the form of rise, that tells us that Brandy is going up on her own to stardom while still a teenager. But some of the other look-fors in the case of rise involve an adverb. And while the preposition told us where, like Brandy rising to stardom, that's where she rose to stardom, we have an adverb that tells us when something might go up on its own. And you can see that that's the case in the 2 example sentences at the top of the page. They tell us when Larry got up on his own. Larry has risen when? Early today. Or even the sun, here's your past tense of rise. We have the sun rose, here's when, that's our adverb phrase, at 5:55 a.m. So our look fors could be, once again, like with sit and with lie, the preposition or the prepositional phrase like we see in number 6. Or they might also be something that tells us when, like early or precisely at 5:55, and that's when or where something moves up on its own. And so we see in the example not the example sentence, in something like number 1, we have a grizzly bear. Here we have it rising, that is, it's getting up on its hind legs. You see this prepositional phrase here, and that's how we know that it's getting up on its own in defense of its cubs. Whereas in the example sentence, we have this adverb. I'm putting an A for adverb. Remember, that tells us when the watchdog got up on its own. Well, when it heard a noise. So that's our past tense form. Rose is the past tense. So the past tense of rise is rose. Now the other form that we'll look at, which would be the similar form to our set and our lay verbs, are things that involve the action of someone or something else. And that's going to be raise. When you raise something, notice it says here you're going to lift it or cause something to rise. So this involves something that has a noun after the verb, just like set and lay had a noun after the verb. That's our look for, once again, because we have to know what is being lifted. That is, what is being raised, not what's being placed or set or laid, but what is being raised. So we'll see in the example sentences, we have a flag or someone who raised her hand. Remember, once again, we have those as nouns that are being put upwards or being lifted. So I was raising the flag. Nora raised her hand in greeting. So anytime that we see a noun, like in number 3, like an alarm, that is being lifted, even if it's something abstract here, like an alarm, or something abstract in number 5, like a price, something that is being increased or caused to go up. We know then that we're going to use the form of raise because it involves something that is caused to go up or caused to rise. So in those example sentences that we just looked at, in number 3, we have an alarm that was raised. The security guard immediately raised an alarm. And in number 5, because you see a noun following the verb choice, something that was lifted or something that was increased, we can see that the store owner raised. There's your past tense of rise. So the past form of raise is simply raised.